I've said that the United States military is the greatest civil rights organization in the history of the world. What do you think about that?
My experience, Senator, is the exact same.
Yes, having served in the Air Force, that's been my experience. And so I do appreciate that. Senator Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Driscoll, congratulations on your nomination to serve as the Secretary of the Army. And I want to thank you for your service to our nation, as well as thank you for the time that we spent in my office earlier. We addressed a number of concerns, and I think you had a very fruitful discussion, so I appreciate that. As you know, senior officials and combatant commands have testified before this committee on the severe threat that's posed by PRC-sponsored cyber actors. The threat is evidenced by the Salt Typhoon, the recent infiltration of U.S. telecommunication companies that left civilians, service members, and installations vulnerable to these attacks. The attack is part of a broader pattern of PRC cyber aggression targeting U.S. infrastructure across the country. The U.S. Army plays a critical role in deterring these threats through defensive cyber operations, through intelligence, integration with U.S. Cyber Command as well to protect us. So my question for you, sir, is do you agree with the Army's current cyber strategy?
Senator, I think the cyber threat to this country, I was actually beside one of our elected officials when we found out our phones were hacked, and I was reflecting with them that all that we do to protect our information and keep it classified, if things like our Verizon cell phone network are going to be compromised, we have to think through a lot of the ways that we've designed our information protection systems. Cyber, with the changes occurring with quantum computing, the changes with generative AI, these are fundamentally going to alter how soldiers fight wars, how information is exchanged on the battlefield, how we prepare, and then the kind of gray zone activities that our peers like China are able to do through cyber are scary. I have not received a formal brief, but my understanding is that the Army actually is taking steps in the right direction. I look forward to learning more and working with your office, as I know this is close to your heart, to make the Army as effective as it can, both on offense and defense and cyber.
So it's specifically about the strategy, because certainly we're in total agreement with the statement that you made. But as far as the strategy that the Army is using now, I mean, what's your assessment, and would you change anything to support operations with what you know of the strategy now?
My understanding now, Senator, is that our offensive capabilities are perhaps not where they should be, and I think our adversaries are being much more aggressive with us than we are with them, and I would want to take a deep look at that.
The intelligence systems play a pivotal role in informing commanders' decisions, and the adoption of AI is changing that dramatically. Question to you is about the AI implementation strategy that the Army currently has. Do you have any changes, or do you believe the Army is adequately evaluating this threat and adapting accordingly?
Senator, my understanding of how AI implementation is occurring is that it is siloed right now. I think that this is the type of work that should occur across the different services. Our lessons learned for the Army will apply to the Air Force and apply to the Navy. And so I think we need to be focusing on this AI threat, because the speed and the pace of the growth here is unbelievable. I don't know if you read the article about the Chinese startup that basically was able to, I think it was between $4 and $10 million,
right.
one 10,000th of the cost, or 1/1000th of the cost of what some of our American companies were able to develop. 6-month trailing. It is not going to be the pacing and the timeline on this is not going to allow us to be slow, and so we're going to need to be at the front curve of it.
So that leaves the question that how do we stay at that front curve? Because you're right, things are changing dramatically. Traditionally, the Army or any of the services, innovation has not moved as quickly as it has in the civilian side, and the civilian side, innovation is only accelerating, including our adversaries, as you mentioned. So how would you engage with small businesses and other innovators to shake up the procurement process and make sure we're on the forefront of AI development, for example?
I'm optimistic, Senator. I think from what I've seen since being the president's nominee, We have had a lot of interest from Silicon Valley and other places in the country for innovators at small companies, medium companies, and some of the big ones that want to get in the game on behalf of our country. I think having very deliberate conversations with them about how do we get into their R&D pipeline, how do we partner with them early on, so as they're training these models, the Army, as I understand it today, is getting access to these models once they go public. China and our other threats are also getting access to those models. There's no reason that, from my understanding, we couldn't be getting access earlier. And so instead of having a 6-month lead, perhaps there are ways we could have a 9 or 12-month lead on these things. And so I think those conversations could be important, and I would look forward to working with your office to have them.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Peters. Senator